President Trump says states should seriously consider reopening their public schools before the end of the academic year, despite the fact that dozens have already said it would be unsafe for students to return until the summer or fall. The president apparently really wants this. He's gone so far as to threaten an executive order that would undo no more teachers, no more books, no more teachers' dirty looks.
Dr. Deborah Birx, a member of President Trump's virus task force, says that social distancing will be with us through the summer. And so will jokes about Tiger King.
Obviously, come on. She fed her husband to a tiger. We're going to be talking about that for the rest of our lives. President Trump has said that he will bill China more than $160 billion for the damage the coronavirus pandemic has caused to the U.S. economy. Xi Jinping has responded that he's just going to add it to the tab because that includes a bill from President Trump last year for $11 trillion.
Due to prehistoric violence, an area in southeastern Morocco has been dubbed by scientists as the most dangerous place in the history of planet Earth. Second most dangerous is a recently stocked aisle of toilet paper.
And finally, Congress has canceled plans to return to session next Monday, May 4th. The decision actually has nothing to do with fears about the coronavirus, but the realization that Cinco de Mayo will coincide with Taco Tuesday, and they're not going to get any work done anyway. The Trump Report starts now.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome to the Trump Report. Very happy to be socially distant and here to bring you whatever our look is on the news for another week. It's another Tuesday. I'm Christian Bladt, joined by Tamra Brown, who brought the funny along with me today, and of course Chelsea Galicia on a very comfy couch. I don't even quite know where you are, but it's a lovely,
mysterious background.
Yeah, it's either that or you're in a padded room. Are you actually in a padded room because you have been watching too many, President Trump coronavirus debriefings? Also, happy birthday to someone who decided he didn't want to celebrate with us. Scott Moore, it's his birthday today. Can't believe he's finally 29. Good job, son. Anyway,
what could he possibly have to do besides be on the Trump Report today?
He's doing other Zoom calls apparently. So I guess he's trying to carve out some time for himself. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I want to always check in and see how everybody's doing. We are, for those watching live, let us know that you're in the chat. And I just want to have a refreshing beverage here. So I want to know, how are you doing, Chelsea?
I am disinfected from the inside out. Thank you for sharing your Oro smoothie with me.
And by the way, for those that are just listening and you didn't see my prop, it's believe me, this is an empty container of Clorox wipes. We haven't had any in weeks, but just thought that would be fun. Anyway, I don't know. I mean, do you
put a little umbrella and a straw in it in your next show?
Well, I have just the green Starbucks straw. I don't have any of those fancy umbrellas, but if Margaritaville delivers, I'll make sure to get some. I'll be like, can you give me some extra umbrellas? In any case,
Margaritaville.
There's so many things to focus on. And do you think that one day, Tamra, historically, we'll be able to actually get a ranking of the dumbest things uttered by our current commander-in-chief? And I feel like saying that maybe people should try ingesting disinfectant probably isn't number one on the list. It's just kind of the most current,
Right. I would like to think that in the future, this entire administration is just going to have an asterisk next to it. It's just going to be like the Astros winning the World Series. It's going to be like, yeah, it happened, but let's not count it on the same level as all of the rest of them. So I would like to think that rather than have a list in the future of the dumbest things, which whoever would have to compile that list, that's a tall order. But I would rather this whole 8 years, I'm pessimistic, just have an asterisk next to it.
Well, there's being pessimistic and then there's being realistic. And you don't want to ever give people too much credit. I was reading a headline before. It's easy to make jokes about this, and I'm going to keep showing the Clorox wipes in case that this means that they'll send some to me, because I haven't even seen them in stores in like 2 months. In any case, you're reading about like hospitals and poison control centers are having increased incidences of people drinking bleach and cleansers and things. And when President Trump was asked about it yesterday, he literally said, I have no idea why people would be doing that. And look, he didn't say the words, people should try doing this. It was more like the question.
It was a question.
I think shouldn't we look into whether or not that helps? Okay. So you didn't say people should drink bleach, but you didn't say they shouldn't drink bleach. So, Chelsea, I know that a lot of these 3 years have been, exasperation piled on top of new exasperation, but where are we at when it comes to saying that maybe people should at least consider drinking bleach?
I saw a lot of people posting about how, well, there are really some medical grade disinfectants like formaldehyde, and defending him in that way. And yeah, sure. The problem is it's not exactly the words he says. It is the consequence it has to people that hear them and hear disinfectant and think Lysol. It's the association with the masses. We don't think disinfectant and think like, I don't know. I think maybe apple cider vinegar is also I don't know. I'm just saying that there probably can be some safe human disinfectants that are medically sound, but that's not what people think of. And real leaders are responsible for not just the words, but how the words land on the listeners. And that's just one more example of how he's not really a true leader. And this isn't political. This is just when you look at leadership 101, it's not just the words, it's how it lands with the audience. And so, I don't know if it had any bearing on people who voted for him before, which is, I'm hoping it slowly does. But I just thought, well, all right, one more. And I guess this is Darwinism also. And I think the problem is because we don't promote critical thinking in this country with our education anymore. And I guess that's the result of too few years of education.
Let's not be too hard on education today, because of the simple fact that most education is happening the same way we're doing the show, on a little split screen, and 30 little tiny children split screens. So I know you're talking about the past, but we're gonna say it's okay for right now. But you know what? I bet any of those teachers right there would be like, oh, and by the way, make sure you don't drink bleach.
Yeah.
Well, kids probably know better.
It's not those direct instructions. It's the ability to think critically. Like when you hear somebody say, maybe you should try disinfectant, that you think, well, what do I know about disinfectant? That it disinfects and it kills, viruses and bacteria, maybe, but does it also kill me? And so nobody ever told me don't drink bleach, but I still know not to do it, because you put 2 and 2 together. And that's what's missing from our education, is that we're told to memorize things, not how to put 2 and 2 together.
I think that the best defense of what he said, because I don't know if you guys have seen that, a lot of his supporters he wasn't saying to drink it. You're twisting his words. He was just asking a question, which in any normal universe would be like, he was asking a really stupid question. But I think it was Dr. Burks, if not her, it was another person that's on the task force, saying he didn't mean that. He tends to just talk out loud rather than have an internal monologue. He thinks out loud. And I do feel like if there is a defense of what he said, it's that he has no ability to hold things just privately in his head, or good Lord, if he does, imagine what stays inside his head. But I think that is a better defense than trying to, the people that are saying like, it was just a question, he wasn't instructing you to do that. And it's just like the lengths that people will bend over backwards to defend what he says. And ironic, because so many people voted for him because he speaks the truth. He tells it like it is. Yeah. But yet to defend him, it's like, well, that's not what he meant.
Right. Yeah. And a couple things. One, the idea that there are thoughts in his head that he's like, no, that's too stupid. I can't say that. Like what? I want to know what those ideas. I'd like him to jot those down, and he can publish a book after he's not president anymore. I'd like to know like stuff that's too dumb for me to say. But then also this idea of like, oh, I was just joking. I mean, I think, I think that that's sort of like, that's like, okay, that's like me in junior high, like asking a girl out and then be like, no, of course I was just joking. I didn't really want you to do that.
Okay, he didn't, more specifically than joking, he said I was being sarcastic. And that really struck a chord with me because I am already so frustrated with people's overuse of the word sarcasm, sarcastic.
It's the new ironic. It's like people don't know what it means.
On dating apps, 90% of dudes on dating apps will tell you how I will make you laugh. I'm mostly sarcastic or fluent in sarcasm. And I'm like, I don't think you know what that word means. Like, even if he was trying to say, he was joking, President Trump, if he was saying that I was joking, that's not sarcasm. I don't think people know what sarcasm is anymore. It drives me insane.
Well,
to let Alanis Morissette knows to ask her to write a new song.
Yeah, I was gonna say to Chelsea's point, it's the new ironic. It's like 10,000 spoons when all you need is a knife.
Literally, so the use of literally, it's that
literally. And yeah, look, there's plenty of clips, but the one that I saw was from Fox News Channel's The Five, where they were just like, oh, obviously he was joking, he was being sarcastic. I'm like, just be like, oh no, he said something really stupid. People might hurt themselves, or you could also just ignore it. You don't have to defend it. If you feel like your agenda is to not make him look bad, great. Don't give some half-assed excuse. I saw a collection of headlines that they analyzed these virus briefings, which, by the way, he said he wasn't going to do these enemy press conferences anymore, except he's still doing them. He just said that he didn't want to do it, but it's more like, well, you're not going to break up with me. I'm going to break up with you. And they're being like, okay, fine. That's fine. Just send the medical people out and we'll listen to them. No. I'm totally sticking around. I was just kidding.
I mean, somebody was probably able to convince him that it would really hurt his re-election numbers if he wasn't doing daily briefings.
As with most of life, you can shoot it through the show Seinfeld, when George Costanza quits his job and then realizes that, oh my God, I need my job. So he just goes back to work the next day. So it's sort of like that. The collection of sort of analyzing this, which you want to talk about jobs that require hazard pay, it's watching every minute of all these briefings. So he spent 2 hours on attacks, enemies, which include the media, 45 minutes of self-congratulation, and most telling, 4 minutes of condolences for victims. So that's 4 minutes. That is 41 less than he spent congratulating himself. And look, it's I don't know. I think that we've talked last few weeks on this show as to whether or not it's important to show the whole press conference. We did like what CNN was doing, sort of the pop-up video. I think you might have missed the week where we actually showed the graphics, Chelsea, but that was your idea, to do the little.
With Chelsea, I was going to tag you. I saw a tweet. There was a tweet that was being retweeted, and somebody was like, remember VH1 pop-up video? That's what we need to have to fact check on the briefings. And should that blow up any further, like, we have on record of the date of the Trump report when Chelsea said it first, I think.
Yes. Chelsea, you said it first. We'll give you the credit. And I don't know. It's almost like it's like how you have like a sign language interpreter. You almost need that person there who's, got like a microphone there in the back of the room. Well, actually the fact of the matter is, and then, on TV, you can actually pop it up. I did want to talk for a moment about Joe Biden, who you may or may not know is running for president. You have to look for him if you want to see him out there. He's almost 80. He can't be going out there right now. Also, who's he having rallies for? So who's going? So I guess the question is, first of all, New York has decided not to hold their primary. Now, Ohio, if we remember a few weeks ago, they delayed their primary. And so they're going to do basically a fully mail-in ballot. So we're going to see some impact on what that has. Now, I don't quite know what this does for Joe Biden with the delegate count. They probably, honestly, I don't think they're going to have the convention anyway. So not an in-person convention. I think that they can do some kind of convention. So I don't know if they're just trying to consider the fact that we don't need, who needs the delegates? Who needs the votes? What do you think about both of these things? I'll ask you first, Chelsea. Just the fact that New York's like, yeah, we do. This is not. And by the way, they're at least for New York City, they definitely shouldn't be going anywhere and standing around and touching the same push button machine.
Yeah. So when I first heard this, that's the exact same thought I had. I'm like, listen, it doesn't make sense. But then they are going forward with other elections on that same day for local elections. So I don't really then understand why they wouldn't just include that extra question about who do you vote for president. Although they say, well, now that Bernie has canceled his campaign, withdrawn his campaign, he shouldn't even be listed there. And then Bernie people are like, well, he didn't withdraw, he suspended to allow his name to be on there so that delegates would still go to him and that he could have more sway in the Democratic platform, which, I understand. At this point, I almost, the points that Bernie has been making for years and years and years almost make themselves at this point. And that became evident to me yesterday when I saw an interview on Yahoo Finance with Mark Cuban, who a capitalist who leans libertarian, was like, we need $15 minimum wage and federal jobs guarantee. And I nearly fell out of my chair because it's that obvious that we need the ideas of Bernie Sanders right now, even to people like Mark Cuban. So
yeah, Mark Cuban, who might very well have the year 2024 circled on his calendar, so maybe he's thinking along those lines. I also heard him saying like why, because he's the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He lives in Texas. He's like, yeah, stores don't need to reopen. Just order online and you can go pick it up like you do with food. He's trying to take a pragmatic approach to it, at least from his point of view. Sorry, what were you going to say, Chelsea?
Well, yeah, I was going to just say that, yeah, here is a billionaire who's not known for his socialist policies, who is just saying that our trickle down economy, he's trying to save face. He's trying to say that it doesn't work now. And I would say it didn't work before coronavirus. But okay, Mark, we'll give it to you. It just doesn't work anymore because you can have all the business going in the world. Everybody can reopen, but who's got the money to spend or who feels confident that they can go out and spend any discretionary money? So I think, Bernie's agenda basically has to be, maybe not fully, but almost pretty darn close, has to be the agenda going forward for the Democratic Party, or they are just way too antiquated. They're like older than Bernie Sanders. And I wouldn't doubt if Mark Cuban is seriously thinking about going in on this election. He can be a write-in third party candidate. He made the point in that interview I saw yesterday that the two nominees, Trump and Biden, were not chosen in this time. They were chosen with a different set of circumstances. And so those two people are not exactly the relevant people fit for the job as it currently stands with the requirements.
Dr. Birx for president.
She lost a lot of us recently with her whole media is slicey and dicey with headlines comment.
I think you meant Dr. Phil, Tamra. You meant Dr. Phil.
Where's he? He hasn't been around. He got a star on the Walk of Fame a few months ago.
Well, see, there you go.
But I think now my vote is for Mark Cuban. I hope he.
Well, look, that sort of ties into what the way I wanted to phrase a similar question to Tamra. Do you think that they're not worrying about the delegate count because of the simple fact that come July or probably August, I think is technically when the convention's scheduled, that everybody just knows within the party that they're just going to put Hillary on the ballot? Do you think that that's probably what it is, Tamra?
She's making, Biden's making a speech today and Hillary is part, they're like conferencing together. Did you hear that?
I heard something about it. Yeah. I think it's
announcement.
What, that Biden will be her VP? Yeah, I think that would make sense. Actually, that's the first thing that makes sense. Yeah.
I don't think that's actually what's going to happen. But anyway, they are appearing together. Yeah. They're Zooming together today.
Scheduled to appear. Yes.
Yes. But yeah, I think that's exactly what you said. We know Biden's going to be the nominee, and that's
yeah. Well,
maybe election would take a little bit more weight in headlines than coronavirus news right now if there was still more of a race happening. But because there's not, even before any of the coronavirus stuff started, that's why the election is so far back on the back burner than it should be.
Yeah, we did hear universal basic income pitched. I think it was Nancy Pelosi. So all of a sudden, Alan Yang's like, "Hey, come on, Yang Gang, where's everybody?" I mean, he's got a podcast. Might as well use that to get back into the race. So look, we've sort of talked about this a few times on the show, and I want to put a different spin on it. Look, Joe Biden is doing a lot of press, which you can argue whether or not he should be. The fact of the matter is he's not being asked by the media about these sexual allegations against him. And we've sort of talked about why it seems like people are not as focused on them. But isn't it the media's job to at least ask the question? I mean, look, he's going to have some kind of standard response to it. But Tamra, let me ask you first, why do you think that no one's asking him about this when they're doing interviews with him? And these interviews aren't like 2 minutes. There's enough time where you could fit this in at the end.
I don't know. In the past, when we've talked about why isn't the sexual assault allegations taking, a higher precedent in media, we all kind of different aspects of it that, because coronavirus is such a pressing issue right now, I do think that it's probably somewhat, not entirely, but somewhat due to media bias. And like I said before too, it's also just sort of what can we do about it? Liberals have to vote for him. And it's just sort of like, I don't want to vote for a sexual predator, but he's the lesser evil of the sexual predators, so it's almost sort of like, what's the point in a certain way? I know that Alyssa Milano is getting a lot of criticism on both sides because she is 100% in support of Joe Biden when she was, so fighting so hard against the appointment of Kavanaugh. And I said on a conservative had posted yesterday that this meme of Alyssa Milano at the Kavanaugh trial, like holding up a sign saying "Believe women" and crying, and then her with a photo of Biden, like giant smile on her face. And I just commented, like, all of these people were weighing in with, stupid one-sided memes. And I just commented, yeah, she's receiving mass criticism from the left too. And she said from day one that any male accused of sexual assault, it deserves due process. So in her opinion, Kavanaugh received due process, and she personally decided that he's guilty. And from what she's been tweeting about Biden's due process on it, she feels that he's innocent. So that's just her opinion. I don't think it's hypocritical. It's just her opinion.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that it is funny that we end up in a situation where, we're wondering, what does Alyssa Milano think about this? And, then you have to wonder.
I mean, we should really just make a segment on the Trump Report, the Alyssa Milano corner.
Yeah. Well, I want to know where other daughters from sitcom families want to know, what does Marsha Brady think? What does Vicky the robot from Small Wonder think? What does Alf think? He's not even really, but who do all the sitcom people think? Joining us now is our friend Brooke Soliz. Brooke, thank you for coming on to say hello. You came in right in the middle of a light topic, which is we're wondering why, look, who cares what I think? We've got three ladies here who now can answer the question. Why do you think the media isn't asking Joe Biden about these sexual assault allegations against him?
Well, as far as Fox News goes, they're all over it. They have stories playing every single night about Miss Tara Reid and going back to when her mom called in, I guess, to Larry King Live. If the quote unquote mainstream media is not asking,
the question specifically is Biden's doing these interviews, and he's done a lot of them now, and these allegations have, only picked up. No one, Anderson Cooper didn't ask him. Nobody's asking him. And so it's, the media will cover it in the way that the media covers anything.
Right.
Are people that interested? Are people going to tune in? But actually having an interview with him, no one's asking him the question. So that's specifically what I'm wondering.
Yeah. I've been playing devil's advocate a lot lately. And trying to get both sides. And could it be that maybe Mr. Anderson Cooper is a little biased, possibly? Or
do you think he would? Are you trying to imply that Anderson Cooper would rather have Joe Biden as president than Donald Trump? Is that what you're trying to say?
It's quite possible. That might be why. That might possibly be why that they're not going to bring it up the same way that Sean Hannity is not going to have Trump on and say, "Hey, remember that one thing you said to Billy Bush? Let's go over that again." I mean,
or by the way, the allegations against President Trump from throughout his life.
The many allegations.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
But I was also going to say, Chelsea, I'm completely with you. Mark Cuban for president. I would vote for him any day over Biden. And Biden bringing in Hillary Clinton today, I think it's a horrible, horrible move. I don't know what he's doing. I think she needs to just stay home and be done. But that's just me. You may
she's home.
Stay home and off Zoom.
Zoom is what I meant. Yeah, exactly.
Stay home and keep the camera.
Let her daughter be on Zoom. Like my daughter just took over my Zoom, which is why I was late because she needed it for school, by the way. So apologies.
Has Izzy endorsed Biden as well? Is that why she was on Zoom? Because she's out campaigning. She's campaigning for Mark Cuban with you.
She's more of a Cuban fan. She's not a big Biden fan. Ever since she saw those creepy Joe videos, I try to keep her away from him.
So Chelsea, same question. I'm just sort of wondering, each of your thoughts on why, just ask the question, you're going to get a very prepared response, but they're not even asking him.
Right. Well, because he's already said that it's not true, that it didn't happen. And so in my mind, what I have to do is say, all right, let's say, even if it is true, we have that kind of complaint against Trump many times over. And if these are my only options, I just, I cannot vote for Trump, and a not vote is a vote for Trump, because a non-vote is always a vote for the person or the entity in power. That's just historically how it is. I think there's even a great quote about it that's like, you really can't play like you're neutral, because you're always standing on the side of the oppressor if you try and play neutral. So even if it is true, I would have to vote for Biden unless, Mark Cuban is an option. But man, that actually makes things harder because, is Mark Cuban going to be like the Jill Stein of 2016? It's a real possibility, unless wouldn't it be great if Biden is like, okay, fine, I'll be Mark Cuban's VP or something of that nature. But neither Trump nor Biden is the leader of this moment, of this time, of somebody who can say, dang, the way that I looked at things a month ago is not the same way I see things now. And, I wish that Mark Cuban would have said, you know what, this trickle down thing was always a joke. But now it's a joke that's not even funny anymore. It's not gonna work. We have to switch around the way that we do things, instead of it's like, well, it just doesn't work anymore. But the point is that unless the masses have money to spend, this economy will not restart. And we're going to be in a very long, painful recession, if not depression. And we need somebody who will support the bottom, not just the top, because we need both to work in a strong economy. And I think Mark Cuban understands that. I don't think Biden does. Right. As much as he might pay lip service. Oh, we need to help the poor and the middle class. But I don't think he gets the how.
Right, absolutely. Well, speaking of restarting the economy, we are sitting here on April 28th, and there are a number of states who have started easing some of the restrictions. Some of them, Brooke, you're a proud Texan.
Yeah.
Texas is one of those states that was one of the first to say, like, okay, we're going to start easing some things. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. When I actually read what the plan was, I don't think I was 100% in. I'm like, okay, it sounds fairly responsible. It was a lot of like curbside pickup for retailers and things like that. So it
Right.
wasn't like, oh yeah, we're just going to swing the doors open. So it'll obviously be very interesting to see. I do find, go figure, I do question some of the decisions made in Georgia, which are, I know this is all over the news, but tattoo parlors. And look, I would love to get a haircut myself. I wish my Supercuts down the street was open, but it's not. Bowling alleys, and we were talking last week about some of the gym lobby and things, and I'm like, man, I didn't know that the tattoo and bowling alley lobby was so strong in Georgia. But you also have Governor Kemp like not speaking with the mayor of Atlanta, the biggest city in Georgia, and being like, hey, what do you think about this? Just being like, no, it's fine, everything's going to be okay. So I wanted to ask each of you sort of what your thoughts are on the states that have already started easing some restrictions. And look, they all say that they're doing a tiered reopening, which I think if you're going to do it, it's very responsible to do that. But just sort of general thoughts on all of it. I'll ask you first, Tamra.
Well, I think it's too soon to tell because, I mean, clearly if you're paying attention to the science and the experts, it's a bad idea to ease restrictions right now. Aside from, I think there was like a leader of a North Carolina Facebook group to liberate North Carolina and ease restrictions, and she has tested positive for coronavirus. So until it starts spreading in these areas where people are easing restrictions, I think it's too early to say like how things should be implemented. I mean, my opinion is, like stay on lockdown, just like they're advising, but yeah, it's too soon to tell the consequences of what's going to happen.
Yeah, look, and it's very easy to judge the decisions that leaders in other states are making, but all four of us are in Southern California, and I think we all saw pictures over the weekend of people who went to the beach. And as a friend of mine who's younger that I work with on my day job, is trading messages with her. And it's like, oh, but it's Southern California. Like, you can't tell us we can't go to the beach. I'm like, are you crazy? That's exactly. I can't believe the beaches are open. I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, don't you?
Well, they're not now. They closed Newport Beach since
Right.
So many people, it was so crowded.
Yeah, but just the fact that everybody was like, oh yeah, but it's hot. Okay, yeah, but it's really dangerous. Yeah, but I don't think you understand. It's really hot, and
I think it's going to cook the virus or something. I don't know.
Look, I want to show off this beach body just like everybody else. All right. Look, I've got a hankering to get out to the beach, but I know it's not safe. So I don't know. There's a little bit of that, Brooke. I mean, who are we to judge some of these other states? But we can still be concerned for them. I think that there's a terrible narrative online that is because of the politics of some of these places that they hope that it gets worse. And I'm like, well, no, that's not good for any of us. I would love for all of a sudden, it's like, you know what? Actually, opening the bowling alleys and tattoo parlors was the smartest thing we could have done. Everybody should open. I'm like, great. I was wrong. That sounded stupid to me, but look how it turned out. So I don't know. What do you think about all of it, Brooke?
So I think that we ultimately did the right thing as a nation with everyone closing completely. We saw that the curve was flattened. The things weren't as bad. I think because of our actions, we are where we are in terms of, especially in California, we've done so well. But I also think we really do have to take a practical approach to this now, because there are people who have lost their jobs. We might be sitting great and fine in our homes and have food and we're able to quarantine for another couple months. But there are people who, before this happened, were already living at poverty level, don't have the means to continue to live. And I wouldn't want to see people die because of that too. And I'm not saying let's sacrifice grandma, like a lot of people are saying, but I think we just have to be smart about it and practical and make sure we take care of our vulnerable populations and and move forward kind of the way that Texas is. I do think that they're being practical about it, not opening everything up at once, 25% capacity first. If you're still a vulnerable population, stay home, because there are people who do need to get to work. I mean, just imagine if you are a 25-year-old who lives by yourself and you're a bartender and that's the only way you can feed yourself, literally get money to eat, and you don't come home to someone who's vulnerable. You'd want to get back to work. And even if you might potentially risk getting COVID, we already know by looking at the statistics that if you get it based on statistics, it's very unlikely that you're going to die for it. Of course, there's that crazy 1 or 2 cases or however many cases where a 25-year-old can die. But if you're a healthy 25-year-old, the likelihood is very low. And I'm not trying to compare it to the flu or anything like that, because we know it's very different, way more lethal, way more contagious. But I think that at this point, we can't keep everyone shut in forever. So I do think that Texas is being smart about it. And hey, they want to be the first state to kind of be the petri dish, so to say, and we'll see what happens. That's their choice. I think when California opens, I'm probably still not going to go out. My mother-in-law lives with us.
Look, you can probably relate to this. My wife and I talk a lot about our kids are small, so they're in like a preschool, private preschool. And look, we love our kids, but what we love more is when we get to drop them off somewhere and not see them for like 8 hours.
Yeah.
But when their school reopens, we're not ready to actually. I know I turned off my picture. Sorry, that was I hit the enter button.
Like, who's that?
But anyway. Yeah. In any case, so when the school reopens, we're like, as much as I want to drop them off, look, I would drop them off there today if I felt like they could play in the yard by themselves and not hurt themselves. But as much as I would love to drop them off when school opens, it's like, let's see how it goes for a couple of weeks, So if if school opens at June 1st, which is optimistic at this point, doesn't mean that we're actually going to take them back. So I think it's very interesting to see how it goes in all these other places. But you see here in Southern California, the numbers were going down and now they're going like way back up,
Yeah.
So I as much as I want there to be the end and I can understand it, I think that, look, you at least do it responsibly. But Chelsea, what do you think about some of these approaches that the states are taking? What do you think that Southern California, the Bay Area has already extended their stay-at-home order through the end of May. I saw that, and the whole state hasn't yet, but usually we're a couple days behind that part of the state. So I feel like that's going to be us before we know it.
Yeah, about a week ago, I had thought that California, that we were already like past the peak and that we were already downhill. But then a few days ago, we had the highest number of deaths in 24 hours. It was 115. And I remember when we had less than 115 people die in the whole country. And that was huge. So we're almost becoming desensitized, I think, to these numbers. I don't yet think that we're ready to quote unquote reopen. I don't think that that's a good term. Even if businesses can do it somewhat responsibly, the thing that happens is that the rest of the people think, oh, well, we're reopen. The government thinks it's safe, and people start gathering again, even though it's not yet safe. So I think the problem is, and I agree with Brooke about the problem. The problem is that you have people who are living way too close to the poverty line or in poverty, and but the solution that they have to work is where I would see things differently. That I would say that for years and decades, we have given subsidies and cuts and all these free giveaways to big, huge companies to let them flourish. And I think now is the time to be like, hey guys, you rode the gravy train for a long time. Now I don't know how, but we're going to have to pass that along to the people at the poverty line so that nobody feels that they have to balance. Like, do I risk getting sick or do I risk losing everything? I mean, I don't see why we have to do that. What I wish is that, the states could help their people more, but the states themselves are running out of money. And Republicans are saying, well, if the states don't know how to run themselves, forget them, they can file for bankruptcy. And I'm like, well, why weren't you saying that to big companies who were running out of money in 16 days? You didn't say, well, that's the responsibility of those poorly run companies. Let them go into bankruptcy. Why the double standard? So I think now I've got the double standard. We've helped businesses, big businesses, for a long time. Enough with that. We're going to take that and we're going to now direct that to people who are less fortunate and who have less resources.
Right. This is sort of this ties into what we were talking about last week. I think that making these sort of institutional changes are a great idea, but for the same bartender, for somebody who works in the service industry, in terms of where's the fix for right now, it'd be great long term. What's that?
More
you said unemployment, but if you just Google unemployment, go to news.google and type in unemployment. So many people are having trouble even signing up for it because the systems aren't equipped for it. You're finding people who think that they qualify for it for whatever reason aren't. So, and also look, unemployment isn't 100% of your salary. And here's the worst thing about people in the service industry, bartenders, waiters, waitresses, your salary takes into consideration that you make tips. So what is on the books for you is a very low salary. And usually it's like, yeah, I make an extra, $200, a day because of the tips. So look, I don't think there's a good answer. And I'm just sort of putting, a different angle on it. I think that the government should be able to help people, but I think that for people who need to go back to work because they don't know how they're going to be able to, well, first of all, not everybody's getting their rent forgiven, and people have bills to pay. They have food that they got to buy food. So I understand all of it. It's just I see the desire to at least start opening it in places where they feel like it's under control. You do wonder about places like South Dakota that has never closed. I believe Finland has never closed. And I know that that's not a state, by the way. I'm just using it as an example that you see the numbers out of Finland. It's going up at an astronomical rate. And they're like, yeah, we're good. And it's like, really? So I don't know. And I think, there's somebody in the chat that had a lot of comments, and their desire is to have things reopen. And I think that, look, there's reasons why we would all like things reopened. It's just be smart about it. Hopefully everything goes great in places like Texas and Georgia. You're seeing more states starting to do that. Look, unfortunately, if you live in New York City, maybe by the fall, things will start to ease back, but it's just, it's too hard to predict anywhere. Go ahead.
Let me ask you, is there such thing as safe, unprotected sex?
You're going to ask me that?
You could be lucky in the process, but
yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Chelsea. Yes, Chelsea. It's called a towel. Okay.
All right. I mean,
that's the method I always practice.
You just
I only have 2
certain
kids.
methods. If you practice certain methods, it seems to prove to work.
Yeah.
That's the thing about you being safe about it. It's just like, really, how are you going to do that? Like, listen, if we were going to open up something, it would be drive-in movie theaters.
There's one open not far from here. Out,
really?
I've been talking to my wife about possibly going. There's a drive-in movie theater.
Something.
Yeah, the Tiki. Yeah, it's like out near like Dwarfy or whatever. And I'm like,
what? That's not too far from here. I need to check that out. But like, that is the only business that I can think of that can.
Well, I mean, honestly, why don't you translate that to drive-in stand-up comedy, drive-in music performances? The problem is, of course, people need to go to the bathroom. That's why my wife and I are having a little bit of a back and forth on this. And I'm like, well, yeah, it depends. I'm like, look, I'll use a Gatorade bottle. I'll be fine. It's fine. Our daughter is still in diapers. So it's like, it's just another day for her, But our
grocery stores are open though. Costco is open. They're running at 25% capacity. They're requiring masks, requiring gloves, not gloves, but wash your hands. If you've seen some of the videos on how potent this virus is, it's actually a very weak virus. If you're washing your hands, taking precaution, not putting your hands on your face, there's scientific evidence to show that you can be safe about this. I don't think that everything should open up, like barbershops and and bowling alleys aren't so necessary, but if we slowly open things up, I don't think we have to be so fearful and keep grandma at home.
I mean, I hear all that, but then there's one number. 53,000 people have died in 1 month. This is a weak virus. It's not that contagious. Just wash your hands. 53,000 people.
And do you know the numbers, Chelsea? And I'm actually, believe me, I'm like not leaving. I've been so cautious. We're not like seeing other family members. It's my fiance, his mom, my daughter, like we're doing everything. So I'm just on the other side of the board advocating for those who may want to start to see some normalcy. And do you know the numbers of people who have died from the regular flu each year? It's
sure 30,000 or so, 36. Even if it's 80,000, I saw that in 1 year, 80,000 people, but that's 80,000 over 12 months.
Right.
We've had 53,000 people, and I believe that that's an undercount. I believe that it's much higher. So but let's just say
for deaths.
Yeah. Yes. I do believe that there are many deaths that because people were not tested and people died without being tested, and so they were not counted. I do think that number should be much.
And it's probably possible that those flu numbers as well are incorrect. I mean, we based our whole shut-in on faulty statistics, first of all, and people who may or may not have died from the flu. I'm sure it was, heart disease, heart attack, pneumonia, whatever it was. I'm not saying that we should be cavalier about this and just allow our vulnerable people to die, but we really need an economist to come in along with our health officials to really weigh and balance things, because I do believe that extreme poverty, our economy falling so low that will end up in the long term killing a lot of people too. The
way our economy works, people will not have to make that decision. It is because we're trying to hang on to the kind of economy that we were running before COVID-19. That economy, that version of the economy, that version of capitalism does need to go down with this disease, and out of that, a rebirth of an actual healthy economy.
It's asking a lot.
Yeah, well, unfortunately,
we've got to step up.
We are out of time. If you can take anything away from this conversation, it is that Chelsea has now given me the idea that the kind of reopening that we need to do that is safe but not safe is what I'm calling the just the tip reopening. And we're going to see how effective that is as to whether or not it works. Tamra, I had a question for you, but honestly, we ran out of time and I forgot it. So my apologies. I'm going to ask you 2 questions right at the start next week because it's important at the time, but I don't know. I was just sitting on my joke for that long. Honestly, that's really what pushed it out of my head. But Tamra Brown, where can people find you?
You can find me at Hey Tamra on Instagram, and hey, guess what? You can find me at Hey Tamra now on TikTok.
Whoa, TikTok.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know how that works, but I know it's a thing for.
It's really fun.
Doesn't the Chinese government own TikTok?
The Chinese government owns everything.
I mean,
Brooke, where can people find you?
You can find me at Brooke Soliz TV on Instagram and Twitter.
And Chelsea Galicia, where do people find you?
At Chelsea Galicia.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, not TikTok, but at Christian DMZ. And Thursdays on Popcorn Talk at the same time, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 Eastern for Marvel movie news. That's all the time we have today. Happy birthday to S-Man80, Scott Moore. Tweet at him. Wish him a happy birthday. And also ask him, where was he? Where was he today?
Scott, we love you. Take the day off.
We do. All right. Thanks again to everyone in the chat. And we'll see everybody next week. Thanks.
Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.